Hi guys, good evening. Happy evening also to everybody. So it's me Ilangovan, online axi.com, teaching personal physiology. So we have started physiology and that one we have just completed a little bit about the digestion. And also we have started the last class about the breathing mechanism and exhaling gases, a little bit about the respiratory system. And this one I mentioned about what do you mean by respiration. And what are the organs of respiration in invertebrates and what are the organs of respiration in the case of vertebrates. And I just started about the various components of human respiratory system. And this one I started about the first one, the respiratory passage or the conducting pathway, under which we have the external nostrils, the nasal chamber, then we have the internal nostrils and the internal respiratory openings are internal nares which open into the pharynx, which is followed by the trachea. Now, the first part of the trachea, what I mentioned, the voice box larynx, a box composed of many irregular shaped cartilages, which are all joined together by means of ligaments and membranes, and concerned with the production of sound, hence called as a voice box. That I mentioned about the last. And the different types of cartilages you have thyroid cartilage, arytenoid cartilage, the cricoid cartilage, cartilage of Santorini, and the last one we have a flap of cartilage epiglottis. I will proceed. Now the thyroid cartilage in the case of male is very prominent and that one is called Adam's apple. This part is called as Adam's apple. This is nothing but the thyroid cartilage which is normally larger and prominent in the case of a male. Now, the larynx, the voice box, the first part of the trachea, has a small opening, a small slit, and that opening is called what is known as glottis. Suppose this is a larynx, and this opening is called as a glottis. This opening is called as a glottis, and through which only air enters into the tracheal tube, the system, what we call the branching system. And normally while eating, the entry of food into the trachea should be prevented. Otherwise, we have a reflex cough, some sort of choking occurs in the respiratory passage and blockage occurs. So, in order to prevent the opening of this glottis, there is a flap of cartilage. There is a flap of cartilage. We have a flap of cartilage. Normally, lying over this what is called the glottis or the larynx, a flap of elastic cartilage, a type of cartilage which is called as epiglottis, a lid, which can be used to close or open this glottis at times of eating. So, in order to prevent the entry of food into the tracheal system, we have a flap of cartilage, mainly made up of elastic cartilage. This elastic cartilage is not only found in the just the epiglottis region, also we have the end of the nose, then also the earlobe, the pinna, and also the eustachian tube. So we have the epiglottis just in the earlobe region, and also just we have, for example, this epiglottis, the eustachian tube, the one which connects the pharynx to, that is what is called actually the medullary region. So anyway, a flap of cartilage, what is called epiglottis, being formed attached to the upper surface of the larynx in order to prevent the entry of food particles into the trachea through the glottis, the slit or opening for the entry of air. Then, see that one, that voice box at the larynx is followed by the next one, the trachea. A long tube supported by a ring of cartilages, incomplete ring of cartilages, in order to prevent the trachea not being collapsed. So we have non-collapsible trachea. This is because of the presence of cartilaginous rings. And now this is a tube extending from the pharynx and up to the level of mid-thoracic cavity. Extending up to the mid-thoracic cavity. And at the level of the fifth thoracic vertebra, it divides into the two primary bronchi, namely the left and then right primary bronchi. Left and right primary bronchi. Now there is one question related to this trachea and also the trachea of cockroach or any insect. So I mentioned earlier the trachea is nothing but a tube, non-collapsible tube. It is normally supported by incomplete ring of cartilage The type of cartilage that supports the wall of the trachea is called hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage. There is one question also. Hyaline cartilage. It is not a complete ring cartilage, it is incomplete ring in the form of C letter, and that is one supporting the wall, preventing the collapse of the trachea. And one question came in the triple question paper related to this, normally the trachea of man and trachea of cockroach. What is the similarity between the trachea of cockroach and the trachea of humans? So both are non-collapsible. Both are non-collapsible. So in the case of insect, cockroach, the wall of the trachea is also supported by a ring of chitinous thickenings. Ring of chitinous thickenings. They are called ctenidia. They are called ctenidia. And that one prevents the collapse of the trachea in the case of cockroach or any other insect. So the common character between the trachea of man and the trachea of cockroach or any other insect is both are non-collapsible. Then this is the root of the respiratory passage. You see that one. So after the formation of the right and left primary bronchi, each bronchus divides into secondary bronchi, and each secondary bronchus divides into many tertiary bronchi, and each tertiary bronchus terminates into initial bronchioles, terminal bronchioles. Also, we have a minute bronchiole called the respiratory bronchiole, and which ends in a cluster of acids, what we call this one alveoli. So this is the passage or the conducting pathway for the passage of air. Now, a little bit about a few words about what are the functions of that one. I mentioned already. The wall of the trachea is supported by hyaline cartilage, and it is not only present in the trachea but also support the wall of the bronchi and also some bronchioles, excepting the terminal bronchioles. The entire respiratory passage, trachea, primary bronchi, secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi, and also the bronchioles, excepting the terminal bronchioles, the one which end with alveoli. So, excepting that one, all other walls are supported by hyaline cartilaginous rings. C-shaped hyaline cartilaginous rings. That is one question also related to the collapsible nature. The non-collapsible nature of trachea is because of the ring-shaped cartilage is what we call this one hyaline cartilaginous rings, and they support the wall of the trachea, the bronchi, secondary bronchi, bronchioles, excepting the terminal bronchioles. All bronchioles are supported with this hyaline cartilage. Now, what is the role of this conducting part? In what way it is helpful? Just normally in processing the respiratory process. The number one, its main function is transport. It transports air to the respiratory surface or the place where we have the exchange of gases takes place, namely alveoli. That is the first function. And also it filters the dust particles and foreign particles from the air. That is why the air is being cleared. So it clears actually the air from the dust particles. So clears it from foreign particles, purify the air, filtering the dust particles. And thirdly, for exchange of gases to take place, we have the temperature of the incoming air and the temperature of the air. It is already there in the body should be equal, or the body temperature should be more or less equal to the temperature of the air, the one which is going to take part in exchange of gas. So it normally brings the temperature of the incoming air close to the body temperature to facilitate the exchange of gases. And finally, respiration is also possible only in the case of what is called humidified air or the moist air. No respiration is possible normally in the case of dry air. That is why the air that enters in the body should be humidified. That is brought about by the conduction pathway. So anyway, just normally transport, then clearing the dust particles or the foreign particles. Thirdly, just bringing the temperature of air close to the body temperature and also making the air more or less humid or moist, so that exchange of gases is possible very easily. So these are all some of the functions of that is the conducting part of the respiratory passage. Then, one more question related to the trachea. I mentioned the wall of the trachea is non-collapsible because of the presence of we have the cartilaginous ring, elastic cartilaginous ring, C-shaped one, supporting the wall. That makes the wall non-collapsible. And another one internally, The wall of the trachea is lined with pseudo-stratified ciliated squamous epithelium. Generally, squamous epithelium provided with the cilia. That's why it's called ciliated squamous epithelium. The cells are arranged not in definite layers. That's why we are using the word pseudo-stratified, unlike the layers of the skin. We're studying more in histology. This is another question. The wall of the trachea internally lined with pseudo-stratified ciliated squamous epithelium. That is why if any particles that enter into the tracheal system or the respiratory passage has been driven out with force, this is because of the ciliary movement of the epithelium, what is called as squamous epithelium. This is another question. Remember that one. Okay. Then the next one we have. So now the respiratory passage carries the air towards the lungs for exchange of gases and also removes the air from the lungs towards the exterior into the atmosphere. So now let's pass on to the exchange part, the respiratory part, or we have what is called the respiratory surface. And now we have, you know that one, just the lungs are made up of small bag-like structures. The unit of function normally follows alveoli. So we have the lungs normally formed by the different branches of the bronchi, bronchioles, terminal bronchioles, etc. along with assays called alveoli together form the lungs. So the alveoli and the ducts form the exchange part. What I mentioned just earlier, the terminal bronchioles or the respiratory bronchioles along with alveoli, they together form the respiratory or exchange part. Now what do you mean by alveoli? We'll see later about the picture. So the terminal bronchiole in some books it's also given like that. It is being divided into many what is called the respiratory bronchioles. This is what is known as the terminal bronchioles, and it is being just actually this is terminal bronchiole divides into further branches. What is called the respiratory bronchioles, which ends in a group of ascites like this, a balloon-like structure, a thin wall, just actually irregularly shaped. A thin wall, the wall is very irregular, and also highly vascularized with the blood vessels, a dense network of capillaries. Such balloon-like structures, very thin walls provided with very thin irregular walls, and highly vascularized, supplied with more intense blood for easy exchange, together called as alveoli. So each terminal or respiratory bronchiole gives rise to a number of very thick irregular wall and highly vascularized bag-like structures, what are called alveoli, the unit of lung function. Alveoli or the unit of lung function, just like actually as species, balloon-like structures, etc. Then if you are taking the human respiratory, we are talking about the human respiratory system only. And we are talking about that one. As per the alveoli concept, in human being there are about 750 million alveoli. There are about 750 million alveoli together, both the lungs. So anyway, we have the alveoli, the unit of lung function, some branches of the bronchiole, and they comprise the lungs. So what do you mean with the lungs? You know the lungs are the major respiratory organs, normally situated in the thoracic cavity. In between the two lungs, we have a space also containing the heart, then the esophagus, the trachea, and other blood vessels. Then the part between the two lungs, the space containing the heart, esophagus, a part, then the trachea, a part, and other structures together called as mediastinum. Mediastinum. What is mediastinum? A space that is formed between the two lungs, containing the heart, containing the trachea a part of esophagus, and also some other blood vessels, and together form the mediastinum. So anyway, the lungs are the principal respiratory organ situated in the thoracic chamber or the thoracic cavity. And as per the general rule, we have the two lungs. Normally, the right lung is formed of three lobes, and the left lung is formed of two lobes. Just only just anatomy you can have. The right lung is divided into three lobes, and the left one is divided into two lobes. And what do you mean by actually lung, the respiratory surface? The respiratory organ. So it is nothing but actually the branching network of bronchi, the bronchioles, and the alveoli together form the lungs. The branching network of bronchi, bronchioles, and That is, the alveoli together represent what is called the lungs, the major respiratory organ or the principal respiratory organ situated in the thoracic cavity. Now, I mentioned already it is being formed of two lobes on the left side and three lobes on the right side. The entire lungs being covered over by means of a double-layered membranous covering. So, the name of the membrane just normally covering the lungs is called pleura. It's being formed of outer layer and inner layer, outer pleural layer and inner pleural layer. And in between, we have a fluid, a pleural fluid. Sometimes we have some inflammation of the pleura, then it is called pleuritis, the name of the disease. Sometimes accumulation of more fluid between the two pleural membranes, that is called pleurisy. So like that, actually we have certain disorders related to the membrane. As in the case of heart, here we have the pleura, there you have the pericardium, the protective covering. So the lungs are covered by a double-walled membranous bag-like structure, what are called pleura, outer and inner, in between which we have a pleural fluid, which will normally avoid the friction on the lung surface while the lung is moving, undergoing expansion, and then just what is called constriction. Then, so normally the outer, suppose you have the thoracic chamber, this is the layer, the outer chamber, you have just a thoracic chamber, and this is the outer body wall, this is the outer body wall, you have the lungs here, now this is the pleura. There are two pleural membranes. This is the outer one which is lying very close to the chest wall, the inner one which is lying very close to the surface of the lung. So the outer pleural layer is lying very close to the inner lining of the chest wall, and the inner one is lying very close to the surface of just actually the lungs, and in between which only we have the pleural fluid, which avoids friction while the lungs are undergoing expansion at times of breathing. Now, this is the human respiratory system, a simple diagrammatic representation you have studied somehow, I think so. Anyway, I would like to represent that one. So, we are starting with the tracheal passage, the larynx, the voice box. And we have a lid, and that is lying over it to close or open what is called the opening. Now, this is the right side of the lung, and that is the left side of the lung. Or just we can simply the right side of the body and left side of the body. This is the right lung, and that one is the left lung. And we have, I mentioned already, if you are taking actually the right one is formed of three lobes. You see that one, the superior lobe, inferior lobe, in between which there is a median middle lobe. Superior, inferior, and median. And the one which we have on the left side is being formed of only two lobes, then superior lobe and also inferior lobe, only two lobes. And there is a depression just actually formed on the inner margin of the lung, that is the one which is being left by the cardiac region. There is a heart, that is called the cardiac notch. And inside the lungs, what I mentioned, the primary bronchus, secondary bronchi, and also we have the bronchioles, and dividing into what we have the terminal bronchioles, respiratory bronchioles, and they end in what we have the alveoli. All these things together called as bronchial tree. All these things together called as bronchial tree. So that's about the simple structure we want to know. Just we have the same arrangement in all cases of human respiratory system. That's why I'm taking this simple arrangement, the diagram. Now, here the alveoli. So if a portion of lungs is normally enlarged, we can have what the structural components, the functional components normally alveoli could be seen. Now you see that one, this is the main branch. And that is nothing but what is called the bronchiole. Bronchiole, and that one is later. Maybe it is what is called the primary bronchiole. You assume that it is a secondary bronchiole or tertiary bronchiole. And from that one, we have the terminal bronchiole, minor branches. And in some cases, we have what the simplest branch is what is called, that is a respiratory bronchioles. So bronchi, then we have primary, secondary, tertiary, then bronchioles, and which we have terminal bronchioles, or we have respiratory bronchioles, etc. Now these respiratory bronchioles are ending in a cluster of air sacs, what we call this one alveoli. And they are supplied with a branch of pulmonary vein, the one which carries away the pure blood to the heart. And we have a branch of pulmonary artery, the blue colored one, which carries deoxygenated blood to the lungs for purification. After purification gets over, normally the oxygen blood is taken away from the lungs by means of what is called the pulmonary artery branch. Finally, unite together to form the just what we sorry. Finally, sorry, we have just now made a mistake. And now the blood, purified blood is carried away by the pulmonary vein, the smallest branches, all united together to form the large pulmonary vein. So altogether there are four pulmonary veins, two from each lung, and altogether they open separately into the left atrium of the heart. Because we have on the left side of the heart, we have the purified blood. On the right side, we have the impure blood or the oxygen blood. So anyway, normally the veins are responsible for carrying the oxygen blood from the lungs towards the heart, whereas the artery here, an opposite one, you know that one pulmonary artery always carries deep oxygenated blood. So you have the cluster of air sacs, you see that one above which we have a network of capillaries. Anastomose capillaries, highly branched capillaries, for easy and efficient exchange of gases between the blood and alveolar gas. Now, just for respiration to take place to supply oxygen to the cells, we need a mechanism, what is called the breathing mechanism, for the exchange of gases between the atmosphere and the body. So we have different types of, I mentioned just what is also called somehow external respiration or also called as a pulmonary respiration, because here the breathing mechanism involves the exchange of gases between the atmosphere and the lungs. As the lungs are involved, it is called what is known as a pulmonary respiration. And it involves nothing but actually taking in up air and giving out the air together called the breathing. That's why I'm taking the word breathing mechanism. Now, further, you have to know something about before the mechanism of breathing. You have to know the structural components of the anatomy of the thoracic chamber. So, if you are taking the thoracic chamber, suppose a simple diagram. So, this is the thoracic chamber. This is a front side or anterior side. This is the back side. On the front side, you know that one we have the chest bone, the sternum. This is a sternum. Sternum, the chest bone. At the back, you have, for example, just this is the vertebral column. We have the backbone. This is the vertebral column. Then we have at the lateral sides, there are flattened curved bones, what are called the ribs, they are encircling the lateral sides. Then on the lower side, we have an arch or dome-shaped structure, what is called diaphragm. Diaphragm. So, the thoracic chamber or thoracic cavity is an airtight chamber. Anatomically, it has at the front side a sternum, at the back side vertebral column, at the lower side a dome-shaped diaphragm made up of muscles, and also we have the ribs which are arranged laterally. So lateral ribs, dorsally vertebral column, ventrally the sternum, and at the lower end we have the dome-shaped diaphragm. And there is also one question. Suppose, for example, when a person is meeting an accident, that's a question came also. A person is meeting an accident, and no external injury has been noticed in that person. No external injury has been noticed in that person. No bleeding, no injury, but the person died. Which one of the following reason is attributed for his death? That's a question. Maybe, for example, brain damage, heart damage, then the muscles damage, and finally the puncture of diaphragm. Puncture of diaphragm. Suppose if anything happens, the diaphragm, if it is torn, for example, just actually, if it is torn, see that one here, a portion of the diaphragm has been punctured. So the puncture of the diaphragm leads to the death of the individual. So without diaphragm, no one can respire, no one can breathe. So the most common cause when a person dies without any external injuries is this is because of the puncture of the diaphragm. That's the answer for that one. So anyway, diaphragm is an important organ forming the thoracic cavity, without which there is no process of respiration. There is no process of breathing. One of the muscles involved in breathing. So the thoracic cage or the thoracic cavity or the thoracic chamber is an airtight chamber having sternum in front and the vertebral column at the back. Then lateral sides we have the called rib bones, and at the lowest side we have a dome-shaped diaphragm, a muscular partition. So you know that one of the mammalian characteristics, the presence of diaphragm and muscular partition between the abdominal cavity and the thoracic cavity. Now, how does respiration take place? So the process of respiration is mainly due to the pressure changes that normally happens in the thoracic cavity. Once there is a pressure change that occurs in the thoracic cavity, which will be also reflected, which will also be reflected in what is called the pulmonary cavity or the pulmonary chamber. So the first part which is affected the thoracic chamber, there is a pressure change. So that pressure change is responsible for causing normally the process of breathing. And once there is a pressure change in the thoracic cavity, which will be reflected in the pulmonary chamber. So the main idea here of breathing is nothing but change in pressure. For example, a pressure may increase or decrease. You know that one pressure is inversely proportional to the volume. And the volume increases, the pressure decreases. When the volume decreases, the pressure increases. This is the main idea of what is happening or what is lying behind the mechanism of breathing. So anyway, the process of respiration is brought about by pressure changes in the thoracic cavity, which will be ultimately directly reflected in the volume of the thoracic cavity as well as in the pulmonary cavity. That's why I mentioned here like that. Now, what are the steps involved in respiration? And generally speaking, to begin with a general idea, and before going to the mechanism of respiration, that is what is called the breathing process. And various events normally happening. The first event is the breathing process, also called as the pulmonary respiration or pulmonary ventilation. So one of the events during the respiratory process is pulmonary ventilation. That is otherwise called as the breathing process. So, and before entering into the actual mechanism of breathing, we have to know what are the main 5 events happening during the process of respiration. So, event number 1, the atmospheric air is normally taken into the lungs and carbon dioxide rich air is given out from the lungs. This is what is called ventilation or simply called as breathing. So, drawing in of oxygen air into the lungs and just expulsion of carbon dioxide rich air from the lungs. And that process called pulmonary ventilation, or even we can also call this one as a breathing process. Once air enters into the body, the next immediate contact between the air and the person is nothing but the blood. So we have a contact between the air formed in the lungs, namely the alveolar air and the blood. So now exchange of gases. Oxygen is taken into the blood and carbon dioxide is given out into the alveolus. That phenomenon is nothing but diffusion. So diffusion of carbon dioxide and oxygen across the alveolar capillary membrane. The blood and the alveolar air, these two are separated by means of 2 membranous structures. One formed by the capillary wall, another one is formed by the alveolar wall. That's why it's called as alveolar capillary membrane. So exchange or diffusion of gases between just diffusion of gases of carbon dioxide and oxygen between the blood and the alveolar cavity through the alveolar capillary membrane. Then, once now the oxygen enters into the blood, that is being transported to different parts of the body. So, the transport of gases by the blood. So, oxygen is transported towards the body parts and carbon dioxide is transported towards the lungs for elimination. And now the oxygen is reaching towards the cells, where now we have the diffusion of gases once again. Nothing but diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the blood and the cells. So the first event we have the breathing, the ventilation. The second event, the diffusion, is nothing but between the blood and the alveolar gas. Now here once again the diffusion, here the diffusion occurs between the blood and the cells. So diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide between blood and the tissues. Now once oxygen enters into the cell, you have the original process of respiration, the chemical process, what is called the internal respiration, artificial respiration and cell respiration. And that is the process by which the glucose or any other just substrate being catabolized and we have received the resultant product, namely carbon dioxide, that is being eliminated. So these are all the 5 major events: breathing or ventilation, then exchange of oxygen carbon dioxide between the blood and alveolar gas across the alveolar capillary membrane. The transport of gases, both oxygen and carbon dioxide, by certain mechanisms. Then exchange or diffusion of gases, namely oxygen, carbon dioxide, between the blood and or across the cell between the blood and the cells. And finally, oxygen may be utilized for the enzymatic reaction of the breakdown of glucose to form energy along with carbon dioxide and water. The resultant carbon dioxide is once again taken away by the blood. So these are the five major events generally we can say happening during the general process of respiration. Now let's come back to mechanism of breathing. I mentioned already we have the movement of air into and out of the lungs. That mechanism is called the breathing process. So the movement of air into and out of the lungs, the breathing is brought about by pressure gradient, a difference in pressure between the pressure found inside the lungs and the atmospheric pressure. And that is the main one, the factor concerned with exchange of gases, particularly the breathing between the atmosphere and the lungs. So the movement of air into and out of the lungs is brought about or carried by creating a pressure gradient, a pressure difference between the lungs and the atmosphere. And how is it created? The pressure gradient, either increasing the pressure or decreasing the pressure inside the lungs. So we are increasing the pressure or decreasing the pressure inside the lungs. How is the pressure gradient? The difference. Here pressure gradient is nothing but the difference in pressure between the alveolar gas and the external atmosphere. And this pressure gradient is created because of the effect of certain muscles. The important muscles are number one, those muscles found in between the ribs. They are called as the rib muscles or external or internal intercostal muscles. Simply they are called as intercostal muscles. They are simply called as intercostal muscles. And those muscles found between the ribs concerned with actually the process of breathing are called intercostal muscles. There are two types of intercostal muscles, external and internal. The contraction and relaxation of these two muscles are responsible for bringing about the process of breathing. Contraction and then relaxation of these two muscles, external as well as internal intercostal muscles, along with the muscles of the diaphragm. The diaphragm is also formed of radial muscles and circular muscles. So the muscles of the diaphragm also taking part in bringing about what is called the pressure gradient. Anyway, the pressure gradient or the pressure difference between the lung cavity and the atmosphere is brought about by certain groups of muscles, namely the diaphragm muscles and also external and internal intercostal muscles. Now, only when only you have the exchange of gases possible because of pressure gradient, the difference in pressure between the external and internal. Now, so what are the steps or stages involved in breathing? So I mentioned simply the mechanism is because of the what is the mechanism lying behind it, the pressure gradient that is created by the muscles. Mainly there is the intercostal muscles and also the diaphragm muscles. Now what are the steps involved in breathing? There are two stages. One is taking in up air, another one giving out of air. The first event is called inspiration. The second one is called expiration process. Taking in of air into the lungs, and that is called inspiration. Taking just or giving out of air from the lungs, that is called expiration. Now, and both are brought about only with muscular movements, not by means of what is called any other mechanisms. Maybe the breathing mechanisms are regulated by the nervous system or by means of some hormonal system. But the mechanism of breathing is mainly brought about by that is a muscular movements. Now let's start with inspiration process. What is inspiration? How it takes place. So taking it up into the lungs is called inspiration. Normally this inspiration is an active process because it needs energy for doing that activity. But if you are comparing this to what our respiration process are breathing with that of cockroach, there is much difference. That's also very important. We have to compare. Now, in the case of human, the inspiration is an active process and expiration is a passive process. Inspiration active and expiration passive. But in the case of cockroach, in contrast to our mechanism of breathing, the inspiration is a passive process and expiration is an active process. The animal is spending more energy for expelling the air than taking enough air. So, in cockroach or insects, we can say the inspiration is a passive process and expiration is active process. But here we have the inspiration is an active process, whereas expiration is a passive process. How is it active? So normally this inspiration can occur if the pressure within the lungs, what we call this one intrapulmonary pressure, is less than that of the atmospheric pressure. Then only the air from higher osmotic pressure enters into the lungs. So inspiration happens only if the pressure within the lungs, what we call this one intrapulmonary pressure, is less than that of what is called atmospheric pressure. That means actually I mentioned here also there is a negative pressure inside the lungs in compared with that is the atmospheric pressure. I'm using the word negative pressure because the pressure is less when compared to the outer atmospheric pressure. That is why I can say there is a negative pressure in the lungs with respect to atmospheric pressure, less than that of atmospheric pressure. Then only we have the process of inspiration happens to occur. Now, how is it normally initiated? So the process of inspiration is initiated because of the two types of muscular movements I mentioned. So what are the types of muscular movements involved? So inspiration involves two different types of muscles. One, the external intercostal muscles, and two, the diaphragm muscles. But indirectly, we also have internal intercostal muscles, indirect. So when normally the intercostal muscles are working antagonistically, when one muscle is undergoing contraction, another one is relaxing. For example, when external intercostal muscles undergo contraction, the internal intercostal muscles undergo relaxation. So that is understood. Now, what is happening? So there are two sets of muscles responsible for bringing about or for initiating the inspiration process. Number one, the diaphragm, the contraction of the diaphragm. Suppose we have, for example, this is before respiration. The diaphragm is more or less before inspiration. The diaphragm is more or less arched, dome shaped. This is what we call this one dome shaped diaphragm. It is being formed of outer radial, like that radial and circular muscles. The muscles are radiating, radial muscles, circular muscles. Now, when the diaphragm is undergoing contraction, particularly the circular muscles undergo contraction, so that now the diaphragm is pulled down. See that one. It is being pulled down. So the original diaphragm is more or less arched or dome shaped. Now it becomes flat. So as a result of the contraction of the diaphragm muscles, now actually the diaphragm is pulled down. Now it becomes flat. As a result, there is an increase in volume of the thoracic cavity in anterior-posterior direction. So this much amount of volume. See that one, this is the volume. This is the original volume to begin with. And now this is the volume that has been normally added. So there is an increase in volume of the thoracic cavity in anterior-posterior direction. This is number one. And net result, increase in volume and the anterior-posterior direction. And normally, for example, when a person is fainted or some sort of problem, when it has become actually, and there is some sort of dizziness, when a person becomes fainted, the first aid is normally we are not keeping the person to lie down. The best position for a person who is having some breathing trouble is making him to sit. The reason for that one, if you are keeping the person to lie down, what we call this one, the supine position. That is called supine position, keeping the person lie down by just facing the head and the face towards up. This is what is called supine position. So when you are keeping the person in supine position, what will happen? The diaphragm is more or less dome shaped, arched, thus reducing the volume of the thoracic cavity so that the efficiency of breathing is decreased. At the same time, when you are keeping the person to just actually in a sitting posture, the diaphragm becomes flat. So we are getting more space. The volume increases. When the volume of the thoracic cavity increases, you know that one ultimately the breathing also taking place more efficiently. So it's always better to keep the person in a sitting posture than in a supine position. Supine position. That is, the vertebral column is touching the ground, and then the face is normally pointed towards the sky. And that is called supine position. And there you have, it becomes more dome shaped. If you are keeping the person in sitting posture, now the diaphragm is more or less flat, allowing more efficient breathing. That is why the person may not be disturbed. This is what is happening. So, anyway, normally when the diaphragm contracts, the main thing happens is nothing but the flattening of the diaphragm and an increase in volume of the thoracic cavity in anterior-posterior direction. Then, so what about the other muscle? The second muscle which is taking part in inspiration process is nothing but the external intercostal muscles. Now we have the external intercostal muscles. The one which is found on the just anterolateral sides of the thoracic cavity in between just the rib bones externally. That's why it's called as external intercostal muscles. Now this muscle is undergoing contraction. So what is happening when the muscle is undergoing contraction? Now this is a chest bone. Now, as a result of the contraction of the muscles between the rib bones, now the sternum is brought forward. And also the thoracic cage is moving upward and outward. So there is an outward movement as well as upward movement of the thoracic cage. So that what will happen, we have increased volume of the thoracic cavity in which direction? So the volume of the thoracic cavity is increased in dorsoventral dimensions. The previous one in anterior-posterior axis. Now, because of the contraction of the rib muscles, what will happen? Now the chest is brought forward. It is also moving upward. So there is an increase in volume of the thoracic cavity in dorsoventral dimensions. Now the net result is increase in volume. You know that one volume is indirectly proportional to the pressure. Volume is indirectly proportional to the pressure. So as a result of the contraction of the two muscles, the net result is increase in volume of the thoracic cavity. That is why I mentioned that this leads to increase in pulmonary volume. Once the volume increases, I mentioned just you know that when the volume is indirectly proportional to the pressure, the intrapulmonary pressure falls or decreases. It is very less. So it is less than that of what is called, slightly less than that of the outer atmospheric pressure. That's why I said a negative pressure inside. So the pressure inside the pulmonary cavity is less. What we call this one intrapulmonary pressure is less when compared to the pressure found in the atmospheric air. And as a result, as we have more pressure in the atmosphere, the air rushes into, or the higher atmospheric pressure forces the air rushes into the lungs through the respiratory passage. That is a net result. So that is what is happening in the case of the inspiration process, contraction of the two muscles, increase in volume, decrease of pressure, and rushing of air into the lungs. This is because of the what is called the pressure gradient. Now let's take the expiration process. So it is happening just opposite to that of inspiration. So expiration is normally happens following the inspiration process, and it is a passive process. Previous one I said active process, it is a passive process, but in the case of insect like cockroach, it is an active process. So in the previous one, when there is a what is called just increase, just normally decrease of pressure because of increase of volume. Now here the reverse happens. Now what will happen because of the muscular movements? The intrapulmonary pressure normally increases. It is higher than that of the atmospheric pressure. It is higher than that of the atmospheric pressure. So the intrapulmonary pressure is higher than that of the atmospheric pressure. And that increase in pressure is caused or created or initiated by the relaxation of the diaphragm muscles. And also I mentioned just the relaxation of intercostal muscles. The meaning for that one, now the external intercostal muscles which underwent contraction during inspiration now become relaxed. Once the external intercostal muscles become relaxed, automatically the internal intercostal muscles undergo contraction. You have to understand this meaning. The internal, so some books it may be given like this: relaxation of the diaphragm muscles and contraction of internal intercostal muscles. While the internal intercostal muscles are undergoing contraction, ultimately you know that one are simultaneously there is a relaxation of there is a relaxation of the external intercostal muscles. So anyway, we have the muscles undergo relaxation, particularly the diaphragm muscles, or we have that what is called the external intercostal muscles, and the internal intercostal muscles undergo contraction. That net result is bringing the thoracic cage and the diaphragm to their original position. Now, once again, the diaphragm is reaching its dome-shaped structure, and now the sternum is actually bringing back so that the chest cage is brought to its original position. That is what I mentioned here. To return the diaphragm and the sternum to their original position. Once it is happening, what will happen? In the beginning, in the inspiration process, the volume increases. Now, the volume decreases. As a result, when the volume decreases, ultimate effect, you have the pressure, what we have, the intrapulmonary pressure increases. So pressure increases or the thoracic volume decreases, and thereby just the pulmonary volume, and so also we have increase in the pressure. So we have reduction in the thoracic volume, ultimately the lung volume or pulmonary volume, and increase of pressure. So such an increase of pressure, that is what is called intrapulmonary pressure, is mainly responsible for, because it is slightly higher than the atmospheric pressure, it pushes the air or expels the air out of the pulmonary chamber. So the previous one we have the entry of air, now the expulsion of air. This is because of the pressure change. Once again, here we have a negative pressure. Here the negative pressure is higher than that of what is called atmospheric pressure. In the inspiration process, the inspiration process, what I mentioned, we have the intrapulmonary pressure inside the lungs. I mentioned negative pressure. There you have pressure is high inside. Pressure is low inside and pressure is high outside. That is atmosphere. But here you see that one pressure is more inside and then pressure is less outside. So anyway, we have in both the expiration and inspiration process, there is a negative pressure inside the lungs, either increase of pressure or decrease of pressure in comparison with the atmospheric pressure. So the normal breathing is also known as abdominal breathing. For example, while sitting or standing or just doing some work, we can see only the movement of the abdomen. There is no movement of the thoracic cage while we are respiring normally, not doing heavy work. So the normal breathing is called what is known as abdominal breathing. You can see the movement of the abdomen. But while doing physical exercises, we can have, you see that on the expansion of the chest and the contraction of the chest, it is coming forward and going back. An intense breathing is called thoracic breathing. So normal breathing is called abdominal breathing because the visible movements only in the abdomen. There is no visible movement in the thoracic region. But in intense breathing or during physical exercises, you can see the breathing movements, visible movements in the thoracic region. That's why it's called the thoracic breathing. So anyway, the normal breathing is called abdominal breathing. Here is a breathing mechanism. You see that one, inhalation of air. So this is brought about by just actually the contraction of the diaphragm. You see the arrow mark, it is normally pointed downwards because the diaphragm is moving. And in contrast to this one exhalation or expiration process, you see that one, the arrow mark is upward. The diaphragm is returning to its original dome-shaped structure. It moves up. In this case, it moves down. And the second one, the rib cage expands as the rib muscles contract. It expands, it is brought forward. And here the rib cage gets smaller as the rib muscles relax. Because of the relaxation of the muscles, the rib cage once again becomes reduced in its volume. I have just actually some more diagrams. The same diagrams, somewhat a little bit different. That's all. Now here the chest expands. We have the ribs. The diaphragm, you see that one, it is moving downwards because of the contraction of the diaphragm. And you see that one breathing out. So here you see that one is being expanded. You see that region, the dotted region, as the chest is moving back to its original position. And also the diaphragm is returning it to its original dome-shaped structure. There is a decrease in volume and increase of pressure. There is decrease of volume and increase of pressure. Then another picture also we have, just to compare. Just we have to compare. So this is also another picture now showing the same. The chest expands. You see that one a little bit a darker arrow mark. And then the diaphragm contracts, the arrow mark, you have to see that one, it is going down. And here the diaphragm relaxes so that it is moving up. The chest contracts so that it is returning to its original position. So the same diagram, but a little bit only just the coloring and also the processes having different roles. That's all. Okay, let's go to the next one. I mentioned all in the deep breathing. What we are doing the deep breathing while we are doing physical exercises or at times of stress. That is called thoracic breathing. So the deep breathing is called thoracic breathing and the normal breathing is called abdominal breathing. Now we can also calculate the amount of air that enters into the lungs and also leaving the lungs during different breathing moments. And you might hear in the case of cockroaches or insects, we have some respiratory openings, or even in the case of larva of frog, respiratory opening, what is called spiracle. The respiratory openings in the case of cockroaches are called spiracles or stigmata. Now, we have an instrument to calculate or estimate the amount of air that enters and leaves during different breathing moments. The name of the instrument is called spirometer. So we can calculate the volume of air that is involved in different breathing movements by using this one what's called spirometer. So the volume of air involved in breathing movements can be estimated by an instrument what is called spirometer. And normally it is used in the clinical assessment of what is called the pulmonary functions. Doctors are using that one, whether the normal volume of air enters into the body or not. So, spirometer is an instrument normally used to calculate the volume of air that enters and leaves the lungs during different breathing moments to assess the clinical condition of the pulmonary functions. Now, in a normal person, we have the normal breathing rate, which is also called as normal ventilation rate. The normal breathing rate or normal ventilation rate, 12 to 16 times per minute. It's also called ventilation rate. So we have 12 inspiration and 12 expiration, or 16 inspiration and 16 expiration. So one breathing cycle or one what is called the breathing includes one inspiration expiration. So that is called as a breathing rate. How many times a person is inspiring and expiring in a minute? That is called the normal breathing rate. It is about 12 to 16 times per minute. A normal person, but the breathing rate may increase in the case of, for example, the disorders and also during physical exercises. Now we have to know some definitions related to what is called the respiratory volume and respiratory capacities. I'll take first one what do you mean by respiratory volume. There are four types of respiratory volume. First one tidal volume. And what do you mean by dead space also? What is tidal volume? When a person is sitting during quiet respiration, not doing any work, the amount of air that is inspired or the amount of air that is expired during quiet or normal respiration, during quiet or normal respiration is called what is known as tidal volume. So during each inspiration, a person is taking in of 500 ml of air, 500 ml of air. That is in one breath. Suppose we are calculating for a minute, as we have 12 to 16 breaths or the ventilation rate. So you have to multiply this 500 by 12 and 16. So the range per minute is 6,000 to 8,000 ml. So the volume of air that is inspired or expired during normal respiration. But out of this 500 ml of air, what is the volume of air that reaches? What is the volume of air that reaches the lungs? It is about only 350 ml. So the volume of air actually reaches the lungs is nothing but 350 ml out of this 500. What about the remaining one? The remaining 150 ml occupies the respiratory passage like trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, etc. This 150 ml of air, which is not taking part in respiratory exchange or gases exchange, is called as a dead space. It's called dead space. So what is dead space? The volume of air that is not taking part in gases exchange. The volume of air that is not taking part in gases exchange is called dead space. It's about 150 ml. So out of 500, only 350 ml enters. And similarly, also we have what is called shunted blood. Shunted blood. What do you mean by shunted blood? So during exchange of gases, The fraction of blood is not taking part in gases exceed. The fraction of blood which is not taking part in gases. Here you see that on the volume of air that is not taking part in gases exceed. Likewise, you know that on the alveoli they are supplied with blood capillaries. Some fraction of blood is not taking part in gases exchange, that is taking enough oxygen and giving out of carbon dioxide. That fraction of blood is called shunted blood. And what do you mean by physiologic shunt? The quantitative amount of shunted blood per minute. The quantitative amount of shunt. So per minute, how much amount of blood that is not taking part in oxygenation or what is called removal of carbon dioxide, and that is called physiologic shunt. And the shunted blood, the filtration, sorry, the fraction of blood that is not taking part in gases exchange. So you remember that one, what is the dead space, the amount of air that is not taking part in gases exchange. It is about 150 ml out of 500, which occupies the respiratory passage. Then, what is actually inspiratory reservoir? Inspiratory reservoir, I or B. Sometimes we are doing physical exercises. Normally we are taking in 500. At times of physical exercises, we are consuming additional volume of air that enters into the lungs by inspiration after forcible inspiration. So the additional volume of air inspired taken in by forcible inspiration. Here forcible inspiration means we are doing some work that is with stress intensively, and it is about, you see that one, 2500 to 3000 ml. This is inspiratory reservoir. Similarly, we have also expiratory reservoir. That is the additional volume of air normally that is normally expired. This is inspired, and that one is additional volume of air that is expired by forcible expiration. So while physical exercises, we are taking the air forcibly and also sending out air with the force. So that one is called expiratory reservoir. See, so the additional volume of air that is normally expired by forcible expiration, and that is called expiratory reservoir or ERV, that is equivalent to 1000 to 1100 ml. So 1000 to 1100 ml. That is about the nature of expiratory reservoir. Then, what is residual volume? Even after forcible expiration, some amount of air remains in the lungs. Even after you are expired with the force, some amount of air remains in the lungs, and that is called the residual volume. It is about 1100 to 1200. A little bit higher, that's all the range. There you have 1000 to 1100, just actually ml with is a expiratory reservoir volume, but the residual volume a little bit higher than that of E or B. Just we have 1100 to 1200. So these are the different volumes: tidal volume, inspirated reserve volume, expirated reserve volume, and also we have residual volume. Likewise, we can also calculate the respiratory capacities. What is inspired capacity? What is expired capacity? What is residual capacity? This is actually the ability to accommodate. Now, what is inspired capacity? The total volume of air that is inspired after normal respiration. That we have the capacity, even without force, we can accommodate certain amount of air. So after normal inspiration, after normal expiration, some amount of air is normally inspired. So the total volume of air that is inspired after normal expiration, just breathing out. So it's about, you know that one, just we have to add. So it is being calculated by adding tidal volume plus I or B, inspiratory reserve volume I or B. So the tidal volume, you know that one 500, inspiratory reserve volume is about 2500 to 3000. So ultimately, the total one 3000 to 3500. You see that one. So for calculating the inspirated capacity, you have to take the tidal volume plus inspirated reserve volume. Likewise, we have the expirated capacity. So the volume of air that is normally expired after normal inspiration. That one is after normal expiration. This is the amount of air that is expired after normal inspiration. Here also you have to calculate that by changing another value. So in place of what is called inspirated reserve volume, we have to take expirated reserve volume. So tidal volume plus expirated reserve volume together form what is called expirated capacity. It is 500 plus, know that 1000 to 1100. So totally we have 1500 to 1600, the range is there. So that is about the expiratory capacity. So this is all the capacity what we have. That one what I mentioned, the volumes. And this is the capacity what we have. So expiratory capacity, what we call this one IC, EC, etc. ERV, IRV, etc. Now I'll take one more thing, just functional residual capacity. So the volume of air that remains in the lungs after normal expiration. I mentioned already the residual volume, the volume of air that remains in the lungs after forcible expiration. This is the volume of air that remains in the lungs after normal expiration. So the functional residual volume you have to take ERV plus the residual volume. ERV, you know that 1000 to 1100, and then residual volume 1000, 1100 to 1200. So we have the range 2100 to 2300. So these are all some of the things we have to know, and some more addition is there. Because of all the time, just I'm concluding my part. We can just proceed further about the vital capacity, total lung capacity, and also other categories related to the respiratory system. So you're most welcome to ask any questions. You can post your questions. We are ready to answer. Thank you. Goodbye. Till then, just next.